Lena stood behind the counter of her store, folding clothes neatly, one by one. Her hands moved with care, like someone who truly loved her work. Her store was small but beautiful, warm lights, soft music, and colorful dresses hanging on the walls. She had named it Lena's Touch because every piece in the shop was chosen by her with love. She smiled as a young girl walked in with her mother. "Hello," Lena said gently, "looking for something special today?" The little girl pointed at a pink dress. Lena walked over, picked it up, and knelt down. "This would look beautiful on you," she said. This was Lena's world. Calm, respectful, full of dreams. The people in the neighborhood knew her. Some had seen her grow up. They knew how hard she worked to build this place. They respected her not just as a store owner, but as a kind soul who helped others whenever she could. But not everyone knew her. One afternoon, the bell above the door rang loudly. A man walked in, tall, well-dressed, and holding a shiny phone in one hand. His gold watch glinted under the lights. He wore a suit that said, "I'm important." His name was Mr. Carter. He didn't smile. He didn't greet anyone. He looked around with cold eyes, walking slowly between the aisles, touching the clothes like they weren't good enough for him. Lena noticed him and gave her usual warm smile. "Good afternoon, sir. Let me know if you need any help." He looked at her from head to toe, like she didn't belong here. "Are you the worker here?" he asked, his voice sharp. Lena stayed calm. "I work here, yes." He scoffed. "Figures." He picked up a black jacket and frowned. "This is overpriced. Who set these prices?" "Your manager." Lena didn't answer right away. She didn't like the tone, but she remained polite. "I did," she replied gently. Mr. Carter raised an eyebrow. "You? So you're the one who takes orders from the owner?" Lena smiled softly. "Something like that." He shook his head. "Unbelievable. These stores hire anyone now." Lena's hands curled slightly, but her face stayed calm. Then Mr. Carter held up the jacket and said, "I'll take this, but I'm not paying full price. It's not worth it." "I'm sorry," Lena said, "but the prices are fixed." He narrowed his eyes. "Excuse me." "The prices are the same for everyone," she replied. Mr. Carter walked closer to the counter, his voice louder now. "You think I can't afford it? Do you know who I am?" Lena looked him in the eyes. "Sir, I didn't say that." "You people are always disrespectful," he snapped. Lena's heart stung, but she said nothing. Mr. Carter suddenly pulled out his phone. "I don't think this store is even legal," he said, pretending to look around. "Is this place licensed? Is she even allowed to be here?" Then he did something shocking. He called the police. "Yes," he said into the phone. "I'm at a store. The woman behind the counter is acting suspicious. She refused to tell me who owns this place. I think something shady is going on." Lena blinked. She couldn't believe it. But she didn't panic. She didn't shout. She just stood still, her fingers resting on the counter. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked softly. Mr. Carter gave her a cruel smile. "You'll learn respect when the cops get here." 5 minutes later, 2 police officers walked into the store. One was young, the other older. Mr. Carter walked over to them quickly. "That's her," he said, pointing. "She threatened me. She doesn't have proof that she owns this place." The older officer walked toward Lena. "Ma'am, can we see some ID?" Lena reached into her purse and handed over her driver's license. While the officer checked it, Mr. Carter stood with a proud smirk on his face, like he had won something. The younger officer looked confused. Then, without much explanation, the officers asked Lena to step outside. The community had never seen something like this. The woman who had helped the neighborhood, who had always been kind, generous, and professional, was now being handcuffed in front of her own store. Gasps filled the street. People stepped out of nearby shops. Phones came out. Cameras rolled. As Lena was led toward the police car, she turned her head slightly, looked at Mr. Carter, and said just 6 quiet words. "You just made a big mistake." Mr. Carter laughed. But the younger officer was staring at Lena's ID, and his eyes were starting to widen. Something was wrong. Something wasn't normal. This wasn't over. Lena sat quietly in the back of the police car. The metal cuffs around her wrists were cold, but her heart was steady. She looked out the window at her store, the place she had built with love, now behind flashing lights and angry stares. But Lena wasn't just any woman. She had a past, a long, painful, powerful past. Years earlier, little Lena sat on the steps of her grandmother's house, hugging a notebook to her chest. She loved to draw dresses, long, flowing, colorful ones. Her grandmother used to say, "Baby, one day people will wear your designs and feel beautiful." But the world didn't always believe in girls like Lena. She grew up in a tough part of the city, raised by her grandmother after her parents passed away in a car accident. Money was always short. Racism was always present. But Lena had one thing that never left her: her will to rise. At 16, she worked part-time at a clothing factory. The owner shouted at the workers, but Lena stayed silent and focused. She saved every dollar. At 20, she applied to business school and got rejected 3 times. The 4th time, she got in. But even in college, people doubted her. Professors asked if she was on a special program. Classmates assumed she was there to clean, not learn. But she didn't argue. She studied harder than anyone else. She graduated top of her class. Then she applied for a loan to start a fashion store. 5 banks said no. One said, "We don't think your community will support a business like this." But Lena didn't break. She found a small room above a laundromat and started selling her own handmade clothes online. People loved her designs. They were simple, bold, and full of soul. Within a year, she made enough money to rent a tiny space on Main Street. That space would become Lena's touch, back to present. As the police car rolled slowly down the road, Lena stayed calm. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She had faced worse. The younger officer in the front seat kept glancing back at her. He was holding her ID. Something about it didn't make sense to him. He typed something on his phone, quietly searching her name. What he saw made his eyes widen. "Sir," he whispered to the older officer, "we need to stop for a second." The older officer frowned. "Why?" The young one held up the phone. "She's not just a store owner. She's Lena Brooks, civil rights attorney, business consultant, speaker, community leader." The older officer blinked. "Wait, the Lena Brooks." The car came to a slow stop. Lena turned her head calmly. "Figured it out." The younger officer opened the door. "Ma'am, I think we've made a mistake." Lena didn't say anything. She just looked at the sky. Meanwhile, back at the store, Mr. Carter was pacing angrily. "She should be locked up by now," he said to a curious bystander. People like that always play the victim. But the people around him weren't agreeing. "She owns this place," someone said. "I've seen her give free clothes to kids," said another. Mr. Carter ignored them. Then a car pulled up. The officers stepped out. Lena stepped out too. No cuffs. Her walk was calm, strong. Everyone went quiet. Mr. Carter's smile disappeared. "What is this?" he asked. The young officer stepped forward. "Sir, you made a false report. The woman you had arrested owns this store, and much more." "What are you talking about?" Mr. Carter shouted. "She's a licensed attorney, a public figure, and your call was based on lies." Lena walked past Mr. Carter without a word. She unlocked the door to her store and stepped inside. The crowd outside watched silently. Something was changing. Inside, Lena picked up the jacket Mr. Carter had touched. She folded it slowly, placed it back on the shelf. But this wasn't over. Later that night, Lena sat at her desk, looking through emails. Her phone was buzzing nonstop. A video someone had taken of her arrest was spreading online. People were angry. They were asking questions. Lena stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, she opened a blank document and began typing a legal complaint. It was time to fight back. But this time, she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every black business owner who had ever been doubted, disrespected, or wrongly accused. Outside, the city lights glowed. Inside, Lena's eyes burned with focus. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. It started with a single post. A woman across the street had filmed the moment Lena was arrested. She hadn't known what was happening, but something felt wrong. Lena looked calm, peaceful. The man shouting outside, "Mr. Carter," looked angry and proud, like he had won something. She uploaded the video with one simple caption: "This woman owns the store. Why was she the one arrested?" Within hours, it had over 100,000 views. People were commenting from all over the country. "Wait, they arrested the owner. This is disgusting. She handled it with class. Who is she? I want to support her store." By the next morning, Lena's name was trending online. Inside Lena's store, Lena walked into her store just after sunrise. She hadn't slept. Her phone was full of messages. Reporters, lawyers, friends, strangers. She had no manager, no assistant. She was used to handling everything herself. But now, everything felt different. She opened her email. Hundreds of orders had come in overnight. People were buying her designs from all over the country. One message read, "We saw the video. You're an inspiration. We bought 5 dresses just to support you." Lena leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. The last 24 hours had been a storm. But the world was watching now. She was no longer alone. Mr. Carter's office. Across town, Mr. Carter sat in his fancy corner office, sipping black coffee. He worked for a big real estate company, the kind that bought and sold buildings like toys. He didn't even remember Lena's name. But now, his phone wouldn't stop ringing. One of his coworkers ran in. "Have you seen the news?" Mr. Carter raised an eyebrow. "What news?" The coworker held up a phone and played the video. It showed Lena being arrested, his voice yelling in the background, his face smug and arrogant. "That's you, man." Mr. Carter's eyes widened. "Wait, how is this online?" "It's everywhere," the coworker said. "People are calling the company. They're calling for your resignation." Mr. Carter stood up. "This is out of context. I didn't know who she was." "You had her arrested for owning her own store," the coworker said. "What context makes that okay?" Mr. Carter's hands started to shake. Back at the store, Lena stood at the counter, helping a customer who had driven 3 hours just to meet her. "You're brave," the woman said, handing over a dress. "Most people would have shouted or cried, but you stayed strong." Lena smiled gently. "Crying doesn't change the world, but standing does." The woman nodded with tears in her eyes. "My daughter wants to be like you now." More customers walked in. Then more. Some didn't even buy anything. They just came to say, "Thank you." One little girl brought a card. It said, "You are a queen. Don't let the bad people win." Lena's heart melted. But inside, she was also planning her next move. The press arrives. By noon, news vans were parked outside Lena's store. Reporters waited on the sidewalk, hoping for a statement. Cameras flashed. Microphones were ready. A young reporter asked, "Miss Brooks, do you plan to sue?" Lena looked at the camera and said calmly, "I plan to do more than sue. I plan to speak for every woman, every person of color, every business owner who's ever been silenced. This wasn't just about me. It never was." The clip aired on TV that night, and the internet exploded again. Mr. Carter's fall. That evening, Mr. Carter was called into a meeting with the CEO of his company. "You embarrassed this company," the CEO said. "You racially profiled a respected black business owner. You lied to the police." "I didn't know who she was," Mr. Carter said weakly. "You didn't need to know her name to treat her with basic respect." "I didn't mean harm." "Intent doesn't erase harm," the CEO interrupted. "Your name's all over the media. Our clients are threatening to pull out. You're done here." Mr. Carter was silent. He had always walked through the world with power, with entitlement. But now, that world was closing in. Lena's message. That night, Lena posted a video from her store. No makeup, no fancy lighting, just her and her voice. She said, "This store wasn't just built with money. It was built with pain, with rejection, with people telling me I couldn't. I stayed quiet when they judged me. But this time, I'm speaking up, not out of anger, but out of truth. We can't keep letting people tear us down." So to everyone watching, if someone doubts you, disrespects you, or tries to silence you, stand tall. You're not alone anymore. The video hit 5 million views in 24 hours. But this story wasn't finished yet. Something big was still coming, something that would shake the whole city. Because Lena wasn't just a business owner. She was about to become a movement. The city had never seen anything like this before. Just days ago, Lena Brooks was a small business owner running a fashion store. Now her name was everywhere, on news channels, magazine covers, and protest signs. But Lena didn't chase fame. She chased change. A line around the block. Every morning, when Lena opened her shop, a line had already formed, not just for clothes, but for hope. People came with stories. A young black man said, "I was fired last month for speaking up. Seeing you fight, it gave me strength." A woman said, "I was told I couldn't run a business, but you proved them wrong." Another whispered, "My daughter watches your videos before school. She calls you her hero." Lena listened to each of them. She hugged some. She cried with others. Then she would open her store like always, strong and calm. But inside, she was burning with purpose. The first march. One morning, Lena got a message from a local pastor. He said, "People want to march with you, peacefully, to show the city we stand with you, and with everyone who's ever been treated unfairly." Lena hesitated. She wasn't a celebrity. She wasn't a politician. She was just a woman who loved fashion and justice. But she said yes. The march was set for Saturday. She thought maybe 50 people would come. But when she arrived at the meeting point, there were over 3,000. She walked in silence. Lena stood at the front, wearing one of her own handmade coats. Simple, elegant, powerful. Next to her stood a young girl holding a sign that read, "Black Business Matters." The crowd moved down the street slowly, quietly. No yelling, just unity. As they passed Lena's store, the crowd stopped. Lena turned. Cameras flashed. People watched from their windows. She stepped onto a bench and took the mic. Her voice carried. Lena said, "I didn't ask for this fight. It found me, but I won't run from it. That arrest wasn't just about me. It was about how easy it is for some people to look at us and see less important, less human, less worthy." She paused. "But we are not less. We are equal. We are strong. We build. We lead. We rise. And from this day on, we speak." The crowd erupted in cheers. And the city listened. News headlines the next day. From shop owner to civil rights icon, Lena Brooks leads peaceful march. Thousands gather to support local black business after false arrest. Lena's voice echoes across the nation. Suddenly, Lena was being invited to speak on TV, to meet with lawmakers, to attend community events. But she didn't let it go to her head. She stayed focused on two things: justice and her store. Mr. Carter watches it all. Mr. Carter sat in his apartment, jobless and bitter. His world had collapsed. He turned on the news and saw Lena speaking to a packed auditorium. "She's not even qualified," he muttered. But deep down, he knew the truth. He had messed with the wrong woman. The world had changed since that day he walked into her store thinking she was just a worker. Now she was someone the whole country looked up to. An invitation from the mayor. One evening, Lena received a formal letter. It read, "We would be honored if you would join the City Council's Diversity Board. Your voice is needed. Your leadership is valued." Lena stared at the letter for a long time. She thought about her younger self, the girl sitting on her grandma's steps, drawing dresses and dreaming of a better world. And now, that girl had become a woman, changing the world one step at a time. But it wasn't over yet. Lena knew something bigger was coming. People were inspired, but the system hadn't changed. Mr. Carter still hadn't apologized. The police hadn't taken responsibility, and others like Lena were still being silenced. So she made a new plan, one that would shake the city again, but this time inside the courtroom. Lena looked at her reflection in the mirror and whispered, "They tried to break me. Instead, they made me unstoppable." The courtroom was quiet, but the tension was loud. Lena sat straight in her chair, wearing a navy blue suit from her own fashion line. Her hands were calm, but her heart beat fast. This day was bigger than her. It was about justice, not just for what happened to her, but for all those who were never given a voice. She looked to her right. Her lawyer, Miss Jordan, a smart and fearless black woman, gave her a nod. "You ready?" she whispered. Lena smiled, more than ever, facing the police and Mr. Carter. Across the courtroom sat Mr. Carter, looking thinner and older. His lawyer kept whispering in his ear, but he didn't say much. He looked at Lena once, then quickly looked away. Next to him sat two officers, the ones who had arrested Lena in her own store. They looked uncomfortable, nervous, like they finally understood what they had done. The judge entered. The room stood. The trial had begun. The video played again. Miss Jordan stood first. She walked slowly to the center of the courtroom and held up a flash drive. "We'll start with the video," she said. It played on the big screen. Lena standing behind her own counter. Mr. Carter yelling. The police walking in without asking questions. Lena staying calm. Then, the moment they handcuffed her. Gasps filled the room. Even the judge raised an eyebrow. Miss Jordan let the silence hang before she spoke. "This is what happens when assumptions replace truth, when skin color speaks louder than ownership papers. This is not just about one day. It's about a broken system." Lena takes the stand. When Lena walked to the witness box, the room leaned in. She sat down, looked straight at the jury, and told her story. "I opened that store with my savings. I worked for years, alone, to make it happen. That day, I wasn't treated like an owner. I wasn't even treated like a human. I was treated like a criminal, because someone didn't believe I belonged." Her voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It stayed steady, strong, and full of truth. She looked over at the police officers. "I don't hate you. I just wanted you to ask me a question before putting your hands on me. That's all." The courtroom was silent. Even the jury looked moved. Mr. Carter tries to defend himself. When it was Mr. Carter's turn, he tried to smile. It didn't work. "I admit I made a mistake," he said, "but I didn't know she was the owner." Miss Jordan stood. "Would you have yelled like that if she were a white man in a suit?" Mr. Carter paused. I don't know. "That's the problem," Miss Jordan said. "You didn't know. You didn't care. You assumed." He didn't answer. The courtroom could feel it. He was breaking under the weight of truth. A witness changes everything. Then something unexpected happened. The store's delivery driver, an older Latino man named Raul, took the stand. "I've known Miss Lena for years," he said. "She's always fair, kind." That day, I saw the man outside yelling. I told the police she owned the store, but they ignored me. The courtroom gasped. You mean, you told them before they arrested her? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. They didn't listen. Now the officers looked pale. Their mistake had been exposed, not by emotion, but by fact. The verdict. After 2 days of testimony, the jury left to decide. Lena waited in a small room with her lawyer. The minutes felt like hours. Then the door opened. The jury had returned. Everyone stood as the judge asked, "Has the jury reached a decision?" "Yes, Your Honor." The head juror stood and said clearly, "We find in favor of Miss Lena Brooks. She was falsely arrested, racially profiled, and emotionally harmed. We recommend full damages and public apology." Tears filled Lena's eyes, not from pain this time, but relief. She had won. Justice on her terms. Outside the courthouse, the press waited. Reporters shouted questions. But Lena stepped up calmly to the mic and said, "This was never just about me. It was about truth. About being seen. I hope today reminds every young girl, every black business owner, that your voice matters. Don't let anyone silence you. Not in a store, not in a courtroom, not ever." She turned and walked away, leaving the world in awe. But Lena's journey wasn't over yet, because someone powerful was about to knock on her door and offer her a chance to change more than just her city. She was about to step onto a national stage. It had been only 2 weeks since the court ruled in Lena's favor, but the world had already changed around her. Strangers left flowers outside her store. Kids wore T-shirts with her face on them. People still waited in line, not just to shop, but to thank her. But one morning, Lena found a different kind of envelope on her desk. It had a golden seal. "The White House. The President wants to meet you." Lena stared at the letter for a long time. She read it twice, then 3 times. "Dear Ms. Lena Brooks, your courage has inspired the nation. We would be honored to host you at the White House to discuss business equity and justice. Sincerely, the President of the United States." Lena's hands shook. She looked around her small shop, the same shop she had opened with her own savings. Now she was going to the White House, not to clean it, not to tour it, but to lead. Her city cheers her on. The day before her flight, Lena's neighbors threw a block party. People danced in the streets. Little girls wore handmade dresses from her store. A local artist painted a mural of Lena on the side of her shop, her face full of fire and grace, with the words, "She stood so we could rise." Lena couldn't stop smiling. But deep inside, she still carried the pain of that day. The handcuffs, the stares, the silence. She knew this trip wasn't about celebration. It was about speaking truth in a place full of power. First time on a plane. It was Lena's first time flying. She wore a sleek black dress she designed herself. As she looked out the plane window, clouds floating by, she whispered, "Grandma, I wish you could see this." When she landed, a government car was waiting for her. People at the airport pointed and smiled. Some even clapped. Lena had gone from unknown to unforgettable, walking into history. The White House was even bigger than she imagined. Guards opened the gate. Advisors welcomed her in. But what shook her the most was seeing portraits of past presidents lining the halls. And now, she was here too. A woman who had once been handcuffed for owning her own store, now walking beside world leaders. The president listens. When Lena sat in the Oval Office, the president looked her in the eyes and said, "We failed you, but your voice is helping us fix that." She nodded. "I'm not here for revenge," she said. "I'm here for every girl who's told she's too loud, too black, or too poor to dream." The president listened carefully. They talked about funding black-owned businesses, about police training and accountability, about laws that protected not just stores, but dignity. Lena didn't hold back, and the president promised action. A national announcement. That evening, Lena stood beside the president at a press conference. Cameras flashed. Millions watched on TV. The president said, "We are launching the Lena Brooks Equity Grant, a fund to support Black women in business, inspired by one woman's courage." Lena stepped up to the mic. She looked straight into the lens and spoke from her heart. "They tried to arrest my body, but they couldn't arrest my voice. And now that I have your attention, I won't stop." The crowd clapped. Some wiped tears. And across the country, people whispered her name like a promise. Back home, not forgotten. When Lena returned to her city, she didn't act like a celebrity. She swept her store floor. She folded clothes. She served tea to customers. Because she hadn't changed, only the world around her had. But now, people came from far away to hear her speak, to learn from her, to walk inside the store that started a movement. But one more surprise was waiting for Lena, because the officer who arrested her was about to return. And this time, he wasn't angry. He was ashamed. What would happen next would test Lena's heart more than anything before. It was a quiet Sunday morning. Lena was in her shop alone, folding new clothes for display. The sun was shining through the big front window. Her life had changed in ways she never imagined, from handcuffs to the White House. But not all wounds had healed. Some days, she still heard Mr. Carter's voice yelling. Some nights, she still felt the cold metal of handcuffs on her wrists. And then the bell above her door rang. She turned and froze. The officer returns. A man stood in the doorway. Plain clothes, no uniform. But Lena knew his face. It was Officer Daniels, one of the men who had arrested her in her own store. He looked older now, tired, like guilt had been following him every day. He didn't move until she spoke. "Yes," Lena asked, calm but guarded. I wanted to say something," he said. His voice was low, careful. She didn't answer, just waited. "I was wrong," he said finally. "We were all wrong, and I've carried that every day since." A letter in his hands. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I wrote this months ago," he said, "but I didn't have the courage to send it." Lena didn't take it. Not yet. "What made you come here now?" she asked. "My daughter," he said softly. "She saw you on the news. She said you were her hero. She asked me what I did to help you that day." He looked away, ashamed. "I couldn't lie to her. I told her the truth, and I promised I'd try to make it right." What the letter said. Lena slowly took the paper. She opened it. The handwriting was neat, but shaky. Words crossed out and rewritten. "Dear Ms. Brooks, I failed you. I judged you before I asked a single question. I saw your skin, not your soul. Your store, not your story. That was not police work. That was prejudice. You didn't just change the city. You changed me. I'm trying to be a better officer, a better man. I know it's not enough, but I hope one day you can forgive me. Officer Daniels." Lena's response. Lena folded the letter and looked at him. Her voice was quiet. "I can't erase what happened," she said, "but I won't carry hate in my heart. That's not who I am." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I forgive you," she said. The words didn't come from weakness. They came from strength. Because forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant she was free, and nothing he or anyone else did could take that away again. A full circle moment. As Officer Daniels left, he paused at the door. "My daughter wants to meet you someday," he said. Lena smiled. "Tell her to stop by the shop. I'll show her how to own her future." He left, and Lena stood in the same spot she had been arrested. Same store, same woman. But the world now knew her name. A legacy begins. Months later, Lena opened a second store, then a third. She started a program that helped young Black girls start their own businesses. She gave talks at schools, churches, even police academies. And every time she told her story, she ended with the same words. They tried to silence me, but I chose to speak. They tried to shame me, but I chose to shine. I forgave them, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Final scene. A young girl walks in. One day, a little black girl walked into Lena's store. She looked nervous, holding a notebook full of dress sketches. Lena knelt down and smiled. "Are you ready to build your dream?" she asked. The girl nodded. Lena stood up and opened the door to her back office. "Then come on in," she said. The story had started with pain, but it ended with hope. Because Lena didn't just win her fight. She lit a path for others to follow.